Hello, welcome to Reality Vomit Podcast, extension of the Vomit series of podcasts. As always, I'm your host, Mac Taylor, and today we're here to talk some more Big Brother Canada. That is right, Big Brother Canada 9, Episode 6. The Monday episode, we're going to talk about the new HOH, we're going to talk about their nominations, and then we're going to get into a little spoiler talk at the end, talk about some stuff that's been happening on the live feeds. Although, spoiler alert for the spoiler alert, the stuff that's happening on the live feeds, there's a lot. House has been quite active so far, so I'm going to try to talk about a lot of the stuff that's went down, but for time's sake, I'm not going to be able to go over everything. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into this edition of Big Brother Canada 9, Episode 6. So we start off, the house is pretty tense after Josh's departure because Josh was the obvious target, right? The person that was probably always going to touch the block or always going to be at least talked about when it came to targets. Now that he is gone, we have to find a new target. And the Sunsetters and the Kyle and Rose sides have kind of been forming. So now it's like, what the fuck do we do now, right? LaToya, we see a lot of the flip, like how close the flip was to actually happening, how close Josh was to staying, and Rohan to going. And LaToya was pushing hard for it, and she was correct in sussing that out because Rohan needed to go in the interest of Jed, Ty, and Kiefer and LaToya. Kyle and Rohan needed to go because they're the biggest opposition to start another side to take over the Sunsetters. Tina will be able to hide behind, she's worked with Kyle and Ro, and also, she has Tara and a bunch of other connections. Tina can slide under the radar, and Beth, her goal was to play the boys, and that clearly did not happen. But which we'll talk about as well. But that was her plan as well to and not to screw over Austin and Braden. So this flip was a mess because really the Sunsetters dropped the ball on this because not only did Kyle and Rose see all them scrambling, so they knew something was amiss, but they had 6 votes. There were 10 votes last week. They had 6. All they had to do was flex their muscle. They were so afraid to expose the alliance that they tried to find ways to make the Roe vote happen that didn't involve them voting, and they're like, oh, well, I guess we can't. If we can't get the numbers, we can't do the vote. You have the numbers. Everyone in the Sunsetters vote for Roe. And then he's gone. And then that's it. And pull Josh in. Like, double down that move. Go to Josh, be like, look, you're not going home. You're with us. Because Josh is a wild card, but Josh was only doing the things he was doing in the game because he had nowhere to go. That's why he was trying to cause as much chaos as he could, because there was no moves left to make. But if you give Josh an out and an alliance to turn to, he will. So all they had to do, they could have had their cake and eaten it too. It was Austin's HOH they were able to manipulate. They could have squashed the other side of the house and simultaneously brought another number in, solidifying their dominance of the game. But they didn't do that. And instead, they sent the house martyr out the door and left themselves wide open for any ensuing chaos to follow. And Rohan also correctly works hard on Tina because Tina was also a key factor in the flip of not necessarily wanting to vote out Ro because that was another option for her to work with. And she also has Tara as the number, which is also really good for her. So Victoria tells Kyle and Austin how close that vote really was. And Kyle tells Victoria that Kiefer was trying to throw her under, like saying that she was responsible for the flippy floppy nature. And they correctly told her, like, right before, the vote went down, because, like, this is good. Because now she's pissed at Kiefer and subsequently his side of the house and not their side of the house. And also, Victoria, we're going to talk about this more in the live feed talk, but she swears on a lot of things unnecessarily. However, she is telling the truth when she swears on her dead foster mother here, but she's going to do a lot of swearing on a lot of things later, and it may or may not be so truthful with that. So Victoria refuses to be the fall person. I'm glad she fought back on this. There's some things she's going to do that aren't exactly the best things to do later. But in this particular spot, yeah, you got to kind of squash that beef. Don't just let them toss you under the bus like that. So we go back to the HOH comp that was in progress, Thursday's episode. And we get a little bit of backstory going in about Victoria not trusting the Sunsetters and why Kiefer chose her and she chose Kiefer. So Kiefer and Rohan go at it. Kiefer beats Rohan. Then Kiefer picks Vic and Tina. Vic beats Tina. And Ro threw the HOH comp, which I'm like, that's a risky move. Like, yes, things will end up working out for him later, but had like he thrown it and Kiefer won, like he would have went on the block. So I don't really think that was the best idea to go throw in an HOH when you were so close to going home right before it happened. So then Vic picks Kiefer and Kyle. Kiefer beats Kyle. Then he picks Victoria and Jed. She beats Jed, and then he has to face LaToya by default. He beats LaToya, and it comes down to Vic and Kiefer, which, again, the Sunsetters were right there in winning an HOH. However, Victoria will win the head of household, and she's pissed about how things, shook out there at the end, and she's the wild card of the house at this point. She was one of the only people we didn't really know where her allegiances lied. So I was very excited to see she had won the HOH because I was curious to see what she had done. And I've got to say, for sake of television, she did not disappoint with what she was bringing. And her and Kiefer both did that thing of being the final two to promise to not put each other up, but she is going to go back on that real quick. And I can't really blame her there because Kiefer did kind of do her dirty there at the end. But she immediately hugs Kyle and Rohan when she wins the HOH. I don't really think that was exactly the greatest maneuver. I know you're HOH and you're not in danger of going home this week, but you really shouldn't have concrete evidence of you working with the other side of the house, right? Even if you don't put them up, you could still try to like maneuver around it. But the fact that you're like beelining to them and they're excited and you're excited, like that's not so great. We've seen HOH celebrations kind of suss out people's strategic gameplay. So she makes Austin, Rohan, Kyle, and Bray have-nots as... those are the people she's going to keep safe this week, so they're going to be have-nots, which, not a bad move there, to, like, try to be like, well, I made them have-nots. Clearly I'm not working with them, right? And we all know how much Braden hates being a have-not, so that was a little bit extra for him. And she tells Kyle he and Rohan are safe, and they are celebrating, not having a sweat this week. And she reveals she's aligned with Austin and Braden, and they are called Bossy Glossies, which is an interesting name. A little more complicated than the dolls. I would have preferred if this was just a doll, like Braden and Austin, that should just keep, like, they brought in Beth for version 2, and they were going to see it a little bit. She's like, I don't care about Beth anymore. So then they should just bring in Vic for dolls version 3. I would have thought, we'll just keep updating it. It's like Windows. We'll just keep getting better as we go. Shit. So Kiefer knows Kyle threw him under the bus to Vic. And he goes to talk to Kyle and Roe, who just swat him off fast. Like, just don't even give him the chance for a conversation. And are pretty condescending. But he just keeps like, hey, I'm playing Big Brother. I'm playing Big Brother. I had to do what I had to do. And I understand Kyle and Roe shutting this down, but like they were a little harsh about it. But again, I understand, they were, Rohan was close to going home. But like, sometimes Kyle, and we'll talk about it again in the live feed talk, he can be a little douchey. Replacement Kyle needs to calm down a little bit. So Kiefer, he did a bad job. Like, I'm not saying that, he should be off the hook here. He did a very bad job last week with all that because he put himself right in the forefront of all this shit that just didn't happen. So a bunch of work was done for absolutely no reason, and that's never a good thing. And Kyle and Roe, they really did. They lucked out with the HOH. Because had Kiefer won HOH, they probably would have gone on the block. So like I said, the fact that Roe threw it was kind of stupid. So the Sunsetters, they know they're in a bad spot. Vic is not with them. They've kept her in the dark a lot. It's going to be hard to try to manipulate her. But again, they had the votes. It's their fault. They're in the spot they're in. This was not pomp and circumstance. They fucked up. And when you fuck up in the Big Brother house, you will probably end up going home because of it. Like, there's not a lot of room for error a lot of times, right? Austin made a mistake last week by just completely tossing her HOH aside, but that is luckily for her not going to bite her in the ass because there are bigger fish to fry. But 9 times out of 10, that'd have been it. But it wasn't her HOH, it was their HOH. And they also fumbled it. So, no one benefited from last week's shenanigans besides Kyle and Roe. And Vic, she is, because they do the HOH room reveal, and the thing about Vic, and I love her for it, is that she's 100% energized all the time. I don't know how I would feel living with her, because that's a lot to have all day. I'm a very laid back, relaxed person. And so if someone's just always at that high level, I don't know if I could keep that. But I love watching her. She's very captivating television. Was a no-brainer for casting in my opinion. But sometimes I'm like, oh man, I try to imagine being in that house, and I'm like, I don't know how I do. I'd like to think I'm a patient person, but damn. So Canada can also vote to save a have-not, which will only end up, by the time this vote comes out, they'll get 2 days off. Not a real... They should have done this for next week, or done this as a live feed poll. This wasn't real, or just to give someone a have-not pass, so the next time they're named a have, next week they're safe from being a have-not or whatever. There was a way to do this vote, but again, I like that this vote just doesn't affect the game, because a lot of the times the twists where Canada votes can be a little counterproductive to the things I want to have happen. So I was totally cool with Canada having a vote it's not a big game changer vote. It's just who's gonna not eat slop for 2 days, right? So Beth working hard to smooth Vic over. But in working so hard, she's kind of been counterintuitive to that. A lot of people are starting to see that she has the same spiel when she's trying to schmooze you. And all it takes is a couple of people comparing notes, knowing that she's having the exact same conversations with everybody else. It's very one-dimensional. It's not in depth. It's not personalized for who she's speaking to. It's just the same. And when people do compare notes and do see, what you're doing, anything you say now seems extremely insincere and untrustworthy, and that's not good. So just a note to any future Big Brother Canada or Big Brother US players, or I guess Australia does our format now too. So, anyone playing this format, if you're going to try to play a good social game, you need to make sure the conversations you're having are very personalized. Don't have one speech and just fucking run it to everybody, because they will compare notes. You will get found out and your game will explode in your face. So, just put a little more effort into it. Be a little creative with your social strategy to see the best results. Because she tries to toss Kyle under, because that's best thing. She does the spiel of like, yes, I'm 100% with you. I love your story. I love your energy. And then like, oh, what do you think about this person? Oh, that person always talks shit about you. I wouldn't trust them at all. So she's trying to toss Kyle under to try to keep the Sunsetters out of the fire. But Vic is having none of it. Like, she's taking it in, because unlike Austin, she's actually using her HOH to garner information. And she doesn't trust Beth. Because the info she's getting is very like insincere. So Kiefer then wants to be block bait. So he tells Tina and Tara that, hey, I don't want my kids to think I'm like emotionally manipulative. I'm going to take one for the team and go up this week, and whatever happens. And it's a bummer to see Kiefer kind of just lay down. Like, he's not, it's not Carol from last season. He's not just like done and wants to go home, but he's really like, he's still playing the game on the feeds and stuff. It's just, he's very it's easy for him to get down on himself, and he's not as you'd want to see someone in his position be, where they just want to fight. And like Josh was in arguably one of the worst situations I've seen in the past few seasons. And he just fought his ass off. And he never stopped trying. Whereas Kiefer thinks he's the target, but kind of for a little bit stopped trying there. And so, like I said, it's kind of sad to see, but again, he's not just taking his ball and going home. He is trying, but I don't think he's as strong-willed. He doesn't have the fire that Josh had in the house, which is a little disheartening considering he's one of my picks. So Tina wants LaToya to go home, because LaToya is kind of seen as like the ringleader of the boys. LaToya goes, Jed and Ty are open. Like, if it's in her mind, like, if a Sunsetter's gonna go, that's probably the one to do. So Victoria tells LaToya that she's a block option. And LaToya is too honest and blunt to play this game extremely effectively, if that makes sense. Because everyone else is doing the usual talk with the HOH, trying to make them feel good, try to suss out what they're thinking. No, LaToya is like, I'm not going to kiss your ass. I'm just here to like find out what's going on. And it's like, you don't have to be overly like Beth. Very just fake with trying to win someone over. But you don't also have to take it in the complete other direction. Especially with Vic, who has a very good awkward face when LaToya leaves, where she's like, "Oh boy, that's not great." And she also kind of sets a trap to see if Bray's name comes back, because she tells LaToya like, it's either you or Bray, and now she knows whoever comes to her talking about Brayden is in that alliance, because she only threw the name out to one person. So whoever's working with LaToya will know Bray's name is up, theoretically, which is a good strategy. Like I said, there are some, we're going to talk about the bad in the spoiler section, But she's actually done some good work in the house too. She has shreds of things where I'm like, yes, you're doing a great job. And then she like does something else. I'm like, whoa, okay, no, what is that? It's an interesting dichotomy of like sometimes like I think she's strategically inclined and other times I think she's throwing things at the wall for no reason. So Latoya then tells her not to be emotional and just play the game, which Vic has this face of like, ooh, that did not go well. So Latoya tells the boys to throw Tara's name out. And it's like, okay, well, that's, I guess, it's someone non-associated, but Tino won't let Tara go without a fight. So then Austin and Bray talk about, they've compared notes on Beth, just like I was talking about, and know how, fucking middle of the road she is. And Austin's like, I'm done with her. I'm done. That's it. So Doll's version 2 is over. Very short-lived as well. And Bray is also done with her, but Austin can't fake emotions either, kind of like Latoya, except like it's all in her facial expression. So like, I really would like to be in this house because a lot of these people are extremely easy to read their body language, and so it's very easy to suss out where they lie based on how they communicate. So she tries to run Bray's name to the group. So now they know Beth is working in somewhere with Latoya. And they're like, well, yeah, that confirms it. We're done with Beth. We're done with Beth. So yeah, Beth fought hard to get Josh out so she could play the middle, only for the middle to be like, yeah, go fuck yourself. You're over there. So things really went wrong for Beth very fast. So Vic brings Bray to Wendy's and gets a message from her boyfriend, Matt, and her boyfriend's brother, who is also her best friend, Pat. It's a very interesting connection with that group. They have an interesting dynamic. Also, everyone calls her Spicy Vic. There's a lot of spicy comments. And by that I mean comments about that term, not actual like juicy comments. She's definitely on brand, trying to get that out there, and I can appreciate that. So she gets that message, and her and Bray talk about Beth being shady. And so, like I said, Beth's game's completely blown up. Probably she's in one of the lesser spots of the Sunsetters, even though she's not the target this week. They would totally let her go and not really think much. The only person that would think a little bit about it is Ty and Jed. But at this point, their opinions don't really matter right now. So Jed and Ty go to talk to Vic together. Not great. And I know everyone views them as a duo anyway, but like, you probably should try to do this one-on-one. But I guess they're like, fuck it, let's just save time and go in together. And they try to smooth her over, but it's way too late. If they were going to work on Vic, they should have done it when she wasn't HOH. Because when you don't really talk game with people, other than telling them where to vote, and then they win HOH, you just come in like, yeah, so we're good, right? Like, that it hardly ever works, right? And if you end up not on the block, it's only because they had a bigger target. Like, that doesn't help your game. So, they should have, especially knowing they were totally safe last week and they were never going to touch the block, they should have done the work. Because when you're not going home, you can make a little riskier maneuvers. Try to, play that house. So Kiefer then tells Vic to put him up, but she's way ahead of him there. She says, act sad, but you're not the target. And then she goes on to nominate Kiefer and Latoya and says, I'm spicy, and like this is gonna be like she's kind of savage with it. So Latoya and Kiefer on the block with Latoya as her target. That ends that episode. We're going to get ready to start some spoiler live feed stuff. If you do not want to get spoiled on the veto results or anything that's happening on the feeds, go ahead and jump out right now. Again, we are going to be talking about spoilers, jump out now if you'd like to do so. For those of you still around for this portion of the conversation, let's talk about what happened on them feeds. Vic's game. I don't think she's very long for this house. However, she brought some fucking TV that I hope makes the episode. But just some of the shit she's said, man, it's fucking gold for television. So, she wants LaToya out. She told Kiefer not to say anything. He's spilled the beans a little bit. And she tells Jed and Ty, if you win POV, you can use it how you want. You're not going on the block. Don't worry about it. Well, Jed would go on to win the power of veto. And obviously would like to take LaToya off the block. And when he approaches Vic to do that, she goes, hey, you and Ty come up together. And they're like, oh boy. And they go up there and she's like, you're not going to like this. Which you never want to walk into a room where someone starts the conversation by going, you're not going to like this at all. Like, that is the most uncomfortable position to be in. Ever. And she proceeds to say, like, look, if you used veto on LaToya, I'm going to put Ty up. And they're like, well, why? You said you weren't going to put Ty up. And she's like, well, really, blame Toya. You guys should blame Toya for this because she did this to you guys. She keeps doing all them flips. She can't be trusted. Really, I would not use the veto unless you want Ty to go up. And they're like, Jed and Ty they don't freak out. Like, we'll talk about a conversation with Kyle and Ro later where Kyle and Ro's tempers just go off the fucking chain. But Jed and Ty are in this crazy situation and they're not losing it. They're really swallowing a lot of pride. I'm very proud of them. Where she goes, listen, you guys said I'm smart and I'm good at competitions. And look, I'm just here to party. And you shouldn't have done that. You're putting a target on me. Again, if you use the veto, I'm going to have to put up LaToya. And blame LaToya. If you don't like that, blame LaToya. It's clearly LaToya's fault. No sense. And she's really trying to gaslight them into like thinking it's their fault. In a way, they fumbled last week, so they're in this position. But it is not their fault that Vic doesn't like LaToya. And I think really what it boils down to, and she's talked a little bit about this, is that Vic approached the guys about working together. They said no, essentially, and chose LaToya over her, which is not great. And she felt kind of betrayed. So she's like, if I can take LaToya out, I can work with the guys. There is a shred of that. But the way she's gone about it is not great. And makes them not want to work with her because of this craziness she's made happen this week. So the veto ceremony happens. Jed doesn't use it because he doesn't want Ty to go up. And then she goes right up to Jed and Ty and she's like, I'd never put Ty up. And it's like, what did that accomplish? All you did was basically walk up to them and be like, yeah, I fooled you. You guys really look stupid. And like, you're going to work with me, right? Like, no, I'm not going to work with you. You made me look like an idiot on national television. Why would I want to work with you? So it's very counterproductive to what she really wants to have happen. So I do predict that Vic, I think she'll go out in the next few weeks. Unless, the HOHs go like the Kyle Rowe way where they're going to target the Sunsetter. But if Jen or Ty or any of them, Beth even, Kiefer, win HOH, she's in trouble. And it's her fault. But again, she's bringing the entertainment. I love it. But I'm like, ooh, girl, like you went from like not a whole lot happening to like you're in the spotlight. You got it. But is it good? Not really. And as it seems as though at the moment, LaToya will go home come Thursday. With the Kyle and Rose side going to be voting to evict her and trying to save Kiefer because he's like a non-threat to them as compared to LaToya, who is. If you are trying to take out the bigger threat, LaToya is a huge threat in this game. But I would like to see her stay. But first of all, they're both my picks, so I'm taking a shot this week no matter what. But I want LaToya to stay to see her go after Vic, and we can have this big war to rage. But I think either way, there's going to be drama no matter what. Like, Vic stirred the pot this week, so, we're going to see if that thing boils over. So then we get into the other kind of big event to talk about on the feeds. Like, the most glaring events. And there's only one more other thing I'll talk about right after this. But this is the other, like, real big thing that happened, right? Is that LaToya and Kiefer were talking about literally just nothing to do with the game. I think they were just talking about normal stuff, and they were laughing, and Kyle walked in, and he's like, sorry I missed the laughter, which it's like, first of all, what do you say when you're having a conversation with someone and you're laughing, and someone comes up and says, sorry I missed what we were laughing about? Like, that's a hard comment to respond to, especially if you're genuinely doing nothing, right? So LaToya goes, there'll be more later. And Kiefer's like, yeah, fireworks. Little did they know that these comments would just snowball downhill. So Kyle goes, or no, this was Rohan, sorry. Rohan was the one hearing and saying this. He goes straight to Kyle. I'm getting them mixed up for some reason. He goes to Kyle and he's like, look, they said there's going to be fireworks tonight. They're going to call a house meeting. We got to go to Vic. We got to shut this down right now. They're trying to come for us. And so they go to Vic and they're like, look, LaToya and Kiefer said there's going to be fireworks. They're going to call a house meeting. You just need to know we're with you. And like, they're just like overplaying the fuck out of this. Because one, nothing happened. And two, who cares if this was pre-veto? But still, who cares if the nominees call a house meeting? The people who call house meetings, usually it negatively affects them. So why not just let them do that to themselves? But instead, they're like, we should call a house meeting first. And so like they're freaking out. And Vic's like, I don't even know what's going on. Like, even Vic, the pot stirrer, is like, I don't know what this is. And Kiefer and LaToya are talking about going to make food. So Kiefer tells Toya, you ready? And then he walks into the pantry. And Kyle and Ro just beeline in that pantry after him. So Kiefer is cooking. Kyle's sitting up on the counter by him. And Ro's in front of the exit, the door, pacing back and forth. Which, we'll talk about body language in a second. But just visualize that. Kiefer's cooking. Kyle's on the counter. And Ro's pacing by the door. So his only way out is to go past Kyle, who's situated above him, and past Rohan, who is pacing back and forth by the only exit of said room. So just get that imagery, okay? So Kyle goes to Kiefer. He's like, hey, so what's all this about fireworks? He's like, what? What are you guys talking about? He's like, you said with Toya about, gonna be more laughs tonight, the fireworks. What is that about, Kiefer? Come on, tell us. And he's like, oh, that dude, you got it all wrong. That was nothing. It was nothing. Kiefer, like, don't lie to me, dude. You said it before, just playing Big Brother. What is it? And he's like, dude, really, like, it's nothing. Like, you're gonna watch tapes back, you're gonna know, like, it's nothing. You're gonna feel real ridiculous. And he's like, look, just tell us about the fireworks. And he's like, all right, you're being a little aggressive right now. He's like, I'm not being aggressive. I'm just playing Big Brother, Kiefer. That's what he said. Just playing Big Brother, right? He's like, you're being trying to intimidate me. And he's like, yeah, I'm not trying to intimidate you. Let's play Big Brother. That's what you said. That's what you said, Kiefer. Let's play Big Brother. What about these fireworks? And this goes on and on and on. And you could tell Kiefer is visibly uncomfortable, as anyone would be when someone is, situated above you, talking down to you, both literally and figuratively. And then the person by the door is kind of blocking the door and moving in a very fidgety manner. And I know Ro paces. I pace myself. But that is not good to have two dudes yelling at you, and the only way out is to get through them. And when you're telling them, hey, you're being a little aggressive, and then they don't calm down, that's not good. A lot of people online have said, oh, well, Kiefer's just being a baby. He tried to play, and he got caught, and now he's trying to make a big deal out of it. He admitted, he got caught. That had nothing to do with this. In this moment, they were, whether they meant to or not, being physically intimidating. I don't think Ro and Kyle are bad guys. I don't think they're bullies. But I think in this moment, they had a very poor choice to continue grilling Kiefer after he stated, I'm a little uncomfortable with this, you're being intimidating, or you're being aggressive. Kyle should, and he even admits later, he should have taken it down a notch when that was said. But he didn't, and they proceeded forward. And Ro has never apologized. Kyle will go on to apologize for this. And they just kept grilling him until LaToya comes in, and she's like, look, we're not just going to gang up on one person, and kind of sticks up for her and calls, I believe she calls Kyle a bully, which he resents. And he's actually pissed at her. He's like, I can't, and again, I'm not saying that Kyle is a bully. I'm not saying that Ro is a bully. I think it's in poor taste that Ro didn't recognize how it looks. And Kyle did admit, hey, even tells Kiefer, I should have taken it down a notch. And then Kiefer's like, look, guys, I know it's a game. I have no hard feelings about the game. But as far as with that intimidation stuff you pulled on me, we're done. We'll talk after the game is over, but there's no more left between us. Which I can't fault Kiefer for this. But again, online people have been savage both ways. They've been calling Kyle and Ro bullies. And again, I don't think they are. And they've been calling Kiefer basically a pussy for... They're saying he's trying to use this to gain favor, but he's not. He's still playing the game, but in that moment... And I've watched the footage a couple of times, and I've listened to it recapped a couple of other times. Because I really didn't know what I was going to say about it. Because as someone who is maybe come off as aggressive a couple of times and also been aggressed upon, I had to try to think about both sides of the scenario, And again, I don't think Ro and Kyle are bad guys. I think they got heated about the game. The paranoia took over, and they just really thought this was something, and it wasn't something, and they refused to believe it wasn't something. That's Big Brother. That happens. Completely correct. And Kiefer was, that this thing was nothing, but he was doing some shady stuff. And it was just a really bad way to communicate. Mistakes were made. And again, Kyle admits to his mistakes. Again, he's still mad at LaToya, even though she had, every right to do what she felt was right in that moment. But also when Kiefer says, look, no hard feelings, but we're done in this game. They should have ended it there. Ro is just super persistent and no, we're going to talk about this. And it's no, Ro, we're not going to talk about this. If he says he's done, he's done. So I don't think Ro really learned anything. I think he thinks he's coming across as the good guy in this scenario in a way, and really he's not in this particular instance. And again, I don't think he's a bad guy. I just think he needs to evaluate himself a little bit there in that moment. He's playing a great game. I'm rooting for Ro to do well because he has, come from the bottom to the essentially the top. spectrum of the game. I would like to see Roe do very well. I would like to see Kyle do very well. But this was just very poor communication. And again, when there were signs of uncomfortability, they should have backed up. So with that being said, those were the two big things, the big conversations that would go down. The kind of not so big thing, but just the talk is about the Sunsetters know the jig is up. Tina has started to separate from the Sunsetters and go off with Tara. They know, one of them is going to go, probably going to be Toya. And the boys are like, these floaters, maybe we should call a truce with Ro and Kyle, take out the floaters. And I think it's Ty who says, like, yeah, that's not going to work out well. Because, look, we've all seen Big Brother All-Stars. We've seen what happens, when the alliance is called a truce to go after the floaters, and you end up wasting an HOH and then get taken out by the other side. We saw what Will did to Kaser. So, and they quickly are like, yeah, we can't do that, clearly. So when they win HOH, they're going to go after Kyle and Ro and Vic. And if Kyle and Ro win HOH, they're going to go after Jed and Ty. So people like Austin and Bray and Tina and Tara, they're going to go deep. It's clear. They're going to go deep. Because of this war waged between two sides, which was not what Tina was initially going for as a whole, because she doesn't do that great at checking in with people. She's not a good manager, of those relationships. But inadvertently, in a way, she has fallen into the spot, and she will benefit from the war of the two sides. So that ends our whole discussion on Big Brother Canada 9. Stay tuned for Thursday, when we'll be talking about Wednesday's episode, and then Friday, we'll be talking about Thursday's eviction. Also, on the Wednesday episode, we'll be doing Best Game, Worst Game, and man, has it changed since last week. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. We've got plenty of podcasts coming your way. Until next time, stay safe, and most importantly, stay nerdy.